We can offer a short mandala to request the teaching. Saji Pogi Jushi Mejo Tramri Rablingji Nide Gampadi Sange Shindu Meteua Yidro Kunamda Jila Chopajo Idam Guratna Mandala Kamnayatayami.
Sangi Chedan Soji Chonum La Chamchu Pardu Dan Gyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Yevanda Dagi Rolam Benje Sangi Drupar Sho Sangi Chedan Soji Chonum La Chamchu Pardu Dan Gyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Yevanda Dagi Rolam Benje Sangi Drupar Sho Sangi Chedan Sojin Chonum La Chanchu Pardu Dan Gyabsun Dagi Chushi Gebanda Dagi Rolam Benshi Sangi Drubar Sho Kangi Tuzi Nizoni Dawa Tamje Pambi Cher Tambi Chun Denze Kotam Tela Changse Lo Namu Laye Gedan Lodan Jengi Tribun Danami Genam Ro Kunji Danam Chizam Tamje Gedu Dagi Chuden Do Good morning, everyone. Nanze Muchin Sundit Dengosra Kanzo Inchike Dolan Denroching at Pege Dolan Dengin Sarsumsum
Sarsumsum. Temasum, huh?
Temasum. Yeah.
So today, can we start by reciting the supplication composed by His Holiness for Rinpoche's quick return? If we can recite that in English 3 times, please.
Damit Demba Jazin Yeranzo Losan Java Yavsu Jebarachi Ramjam Shingi
Victorious Losang Father and Sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and good of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, variable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious ones, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings who suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shrabakas and Prajnaputas, victorious Losang Father and Sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge in infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings who suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth, the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pradika Buddhas, victorious lost saying father and sons, along with the lineage masters, and all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, as for the other living beings who suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Alas, tanam yung anzo chitang lamram chikshede wores. The long amount chin lokashich sa. Ani tandangan di lamram samdo di mixing go to mesra. Ani jonder chik wores.
So in general, on the Sunday teachings, we've been looking at the Lamrim teachings, and I think we've been looking at it for a few years. So this is something that we all need to train ourselves in.
Takanji kan yin kyang rong seda ko re kan yin ya kari yin ya ani nganzun de ya ta ru kran sun de yong ya ani ngin de she di number sanji chudras.
However, you have all come here to hear me speak, teach, and whatever I will say will be the words of the Buddha Dharma.
Teda tinza chidang anzo zambali nalo tinane da ani lomba di nalo la ya chuluk drama de yoras ra issue Hindu kachi ani and number ringmira mambu yoras. Sorry.
In general, in the world, there are many different religions. There's Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, many different religions.
These are Tangado Jigimbana, Chulu Shambalaya, Mixiki, and Lobjon Chinyomes. These are One Kunzuki. Ani chu chetang ani pegi ta nyamlen chetang nge kishing mesra ta konyo yorada penai ani penan nambi gi chu ma song di ani nguyu netsul yinda mayin ki tolaya pena da me bala so song di ani da dengin sures da mende deyak di da yebi gunsen karku gores ane da to matro set pe tomba ni sheding pen nambe ge da to matro bi gunsen karres the dinti ge pe lobjon ki ngan lomsen ala ya yoba inza da dengin chogi gunsen di ngan ma gunsen samlo tandu sam tawndi the khandai na samsung chik in the yores da maybe gunsen nganzu mig tonde ya ki chula ya pejar ya amjo kodaya gi jalaya pejaya ani chik semlaya samdaya gi tinti la su jarondi ngone gi chik da me setlaya ku junsen pe junsen samdang se yu chik tende yores tati ti tende yores ra
Tini kuna di tamak na danta mig dang la so padi kola so nyenge sa poko maso.
la
Ken danta mig dang rabode kola so so di sa poko maso.
nganzo da me bi junsen shiong ra da me bi junsen shiong di pe jargira ta pe na ro chi su la pe che te ya dra la pe che te ya ani che dang ro dang ta chi tindi mi ki ton de ya amjo ko de ya tindi la pe jan ta ro
So from my side, I haven't studied the religions of the world. I do not know what their views are, what their presentations are, or how they present that their disciples should develop themselves. So this is unknown to me, but to be honest, it is something that I should get to know. In Buddhism, this is because in Buddhism, there is a great emphasis on whether something is in accordance with reality or not. This is usually discussed in the context of emptiness or selflessness. And to come to understand how something exists in reality or not, mere statements are insufficient. One needs to rely on reasons, sound reasons. So in the context of selflessness or emptiness, one will rely on reasons to establish whether something exists by way of its own nature, its own self, or whether it is selfless or empty of existing in that way. Relying on or utilizing, making use of reasons, using one's own logical analysis is of crucial importance in Buddhism. Also in Buddhism, to come to understand selflessness or emptiness, many illustrations or examples are used. Examples arising from what we see, from what we hear, from what we taste or touch, as well as what we think about. So there are many illustrations also that are presented as a basis for analysis, to use reasons to come to understand whether something exists in accordance with reality or not.
Tiza ta kanji sangi gi chö di sheondi toma telaya shi ngubi netsus shi ngubi netsus ra shi ngubi netsus se ta kechembu shochi shi demba ni se ra shi demba ni slang de ngazu du se ani tong deya ko deya semla sam deya gi ta ji chögi ta yug nisul dramada yoras telaya nganzulaya nansul chigdang nganzulaya nansul chigdang yukorang yosul chigi yani chanyi chiyores the di shingubi nisul the yosul kanyimba di ya dembas dembas ya di gyuwa medeba the yosul delaya gyuwa medeba 아니 요출지어라 요출 디페나 두지기 추러지나 규견을 뜨는 추바디 뜨는 추고바디 두지 칸르지네 요르고요 말아 지불지기야로 그래서 그 규견을 뜨는 추고인자 그 라완도 메바디 그 요출 타르투바디 시와다 델라 디 뎀바레스 등원에 가주스 제바시는 디 통투게 요레스 딜레 준세 요레스라 디 뎀바레스 내가 아주 샘나라야 이게 나와이나야 어디 비 반드시 지 라왕게 여봤다고 유코랑 띵니 여봤다고 지 나나야 대응말이야 체가 좋은디 아니 니에 메바지 문즈 마투가 저라스 딜레야 줌바세 그레스 디다 싱구비네 소키 돌야 상타야디 디니레야 제바치고 다스라
When Buddha Shakyamuni initially taught, he taught the foundation of reality. And this is something of great importance. In the Buddha's teachings, this is called the two truths. Or another way, a very uncommon way that it's translated would be two realities. So this presentation on the two truths, we need to come to understand and apply it to things that we see, things that we hear, as well as what we are thinking about. These are all in the Buddhist presentation called objects. The object we see, the object we're hearing, so sound, and the object we are thinking about, whatever it is we are thinking about, so thoughts. What we need to come to look at, what we need to look at is how these objects appear to our mind and whether it exists in the way that it appears or not. And we'll come to see there are two in this presentation on two truths, there are two ways that phenomena appear, or there are two ways that phenomena can be said to exist, maybe like that. And this is what we need to look at. This is what we need to come to understand. We need to understand whether the way things appear is how they exist, or whether that appearance is false or deceptive. So for example, something that appears to our mind, again, whether it's something we're seeing or hearing, so sound, or something we're thinking about, is it impermanent? Is it a or to use a synonym, a compounded phenomena, which means it's come about in dependence on causes. If it's come about in dependence on causes, it cannot be unchanging because it's come from causes. So this denotes that there's been change. It cannot be unchanging. If we relate to it, what appears to our mind, what we are thinking about, as being independent, in other words, not dependent on causes, then that appearance is not in accordance with reality. If, on the other hand, we recognize that it has come about in dependence on causes, therefore it's unchanging, this is in accordance with reality. And how we come to this conclusion of whether something, the way it appears, is true, in accordance with reality, or false, not in accordance with reality, we come to this conclusion in dependence on reasons. For example, if it's appeared to my mind and it's come about in dependence on causes, then it cannot be independent, it cannot be unchanging because it's dependent on causes. The process is to take an object of thought, again, something that we're seeing or hearing or thinking about, and investigate, does it exist in the way that it appears or not? Can it be found, to express it differently, can it be found to exist in the way that it appears or not? If it does, it's in accordance with reality, it's true. If it does not, then it is false. It is not in accordance with reality. The way that it appears is not in accordance with reality. Yes, sir.
Book down. Your Dharma book. It's down. Because the salsa. Okay. Thank you. Did it? That Dean Zang, the Nanchugi, Nanchu, Jomden Digi, Nanzuli, Chu Sonyagi, Zawa Tartubarodi, she Dembani, Nitsulte Tugares, she Dembani, Nitsuldi, Tayakuchik, Montrugores. The Din Nanchu, that any Tartusadi. Nanchu dita Nanchu di ngoni gi demba yinda min sedi jidi yul nilu la ya tugo gres ta ngoni nan ta Nanchu senden china yul nilu la ya tu chene chomden di gi yu nilu kansheba di ani cheba chene ta ha koya ji yoba jimba na ta chomden di gi chudi ta da chin tugo gres. Tangwane pigi yu nilu da mintum bajigin bayna ta di ya nega gubi wang somba nega the gubi wang kirwa gubi wang sana
kan du salgo gire
chomden di gi churumba sum sonro rimba tangbu di ani kunzu le thangbo wala ya kolhaya ge chedu songbare ma do chungone di songyo mara ta di gubi wang songbare gubi wang songbare di zone ta gubi wang songya kap kap yor ma do ten tartu badi yungubi nesul de tyunggo wores yungubi nesul di 좀된 데 송샤바 디 당간도 제바 체 디르요 디 제바 체바이나 아니 좀된 데 텔레 템비게 아 딱할수 없다 장된 게 람라연 조수죠라스
장된 람나
장부다 템바 장송하와슬라라 장부송이 템바 된자송이 디 람디 람가디 니그레스 하코그레스 장부 람디 라와이나 장부 공판토 그랬으라라 산기 공판토 그랬을 당원이 싸워지 추구여랬으라
The teachings of the Buddha, or which we refer to as the Dharma or the Buddha Dharma, this comes down to ultimately, or in the end, the Four Noble Truths. And these Four Noble Truths need to be understood well. Moreover, the basis of how things abide, whether the way they abide is the way we believe they abide is in accordance with reality or not. This is something that we have to come to know. And if we know this well, we will have understood the teachings of the Buddha well. I'll repeat that. If we understand how things exist in reality well, if the truth of how things exist in reality well, we will have come to understand the Buddha's teachings well. When the Buddha taught, especially initially, he taught in a way that was in accordance with his particular audience at the time. So in accordance with the complexities of their own individual karmic backgrounds, their own individual dispositions. So therefore, some teachings he gave were the way he presented reality was not actually how reality exists, but later, when he had more mature students, he was able to present how phenomena exist in reality. Our responsibility is to seek out the truth, to investigate for ourselves. And the way we investigate is based on knowledge and then thinking for ourselves. We need to come to understand how phenomena, how things exist in reality. And to the extent we come to realize how things exist in reality, our trust, our faith, our conviction in the Buddha will grow. And when we come to realize how phenomena exist in reality, we'll have deep and unshakable confidence in the Buddha and his teachings.
Terda the you nilu dembadi hakowaina dembadi hakowaina and you get the you nilu dodan joras you nilu dodan di hakowandi nganzo taji and pena sugda terror rexa imbainandra and chi pena zambulin koran trupdanginandra and zambulin nevi gichi and medan tondro danta chi socha kandaji imbainaya kandaji trubuyome kandaji kigiyome and di gichi semkamge rodan and pena nganzo midojina migi semlaya deba kariyome so di nganzo karin degiyome ro pena devan deba dungam deba sedita and sanji kaduina ro nganzo chu kandasong bainaya devan deba ta dungam mendebati leya shishani chu songoras ro devan deguyanza deva tobyagi chedu chu songbare dungan degu mebayanza dungar toryagi che dungar pa meyagi mayonyagi chedu chu songyores ta di geshe gyatamares ro ta dinza ta sangi chu dige nganzu deva khandaji drup thugudu ro nganzu dunga khandaji se thugudu di nganzu yanya samudani chebachi goyachi ro di 가주스기 제버 체나야 가주스기 제버 체나야 자세자다 캐랑 남중은 담바이나 니번 예 이체 체를 줘야지 마도 어다데 싸우니 레몬도 삼성지 비기 가서 다지 아니 로스루분 네바슬라나 다지
Yeah.
로스루분 네바슬라 warda 로스루분 네슬라 온디게
Subudi trila drabo.
마레 아니 로스루부 만이나 카리어슬라니 촉신 제조라 아 캐난 롬바디링아 롬바디르스 파스 촉신 제조라 데는 많이 그 무연에서 강이 바 디톨라 사운드는 좋도 괜찮나 델 로스루분 네바스 델 로스루분 닝이 간사 지긴 바이나 아니 산지기 최들에 가주스 제바 체나야 오늘 소소 이치 망래야지 다들 오늘 덴바레샤 삼성 이치 니토야지 디용고레스 라
How phenomena actually exist or actually abide. This is something that we need to come to know. So just to say as an aside, as the translator, I mentioned two truths, four truths earlier. This word for truth can also be used for the word for reality. So understand the word truth also to have that connotation. There are other words for reality, but the word truth in English doesn't always convey the correct meaning. So when you hear truth, understand it may well also carry the connotation of reality. So we need to come to understand how all phenomena exist in reality. So phenomena then we should understand as being everything that exists, whether it is something that we encounter through what we see, we hear, we touch, we taste, we smell, or we think about. So for example, how our world came into existence. This is something that many great minds seek to find out how in reality did the world come about into existence. We as seekers of truth, seekers of the reality, we need to investigate all phenomena, everything that exists, whether outer or inner phenomena. And the purpose of this, the reason why I'm saying that this is something that we need to do, ties in with the motivation behind every teaching that the Buddha gave. And that was to fulfill everyone's heart wish, everyone's deepest aspiration and desire, which is to be free of all pain, to experience no suffering, no problems or difficulties, no matter how slight. All of us just want to abide in happiness. Everything we say, do, or think is motivated to experience happiness, but it always fades away. The Buddha taught that to understand, to achieve lasting happiness, the Buddha gave all his teachings, taught the Dharma. And for that same reason, we need to come to understand how all phenomena, everything that exists, how it actually exists, how in reality it exists. This is essential in order to gain freedom from suffering, pain and difficulties, complete freedom, and thereby attain lasting happiness. And the way to do this from the side of the student, all of us, is to be aware of our mind, be aware of our own biases, our habitual tendencies in how we think, be aware of that, and try and approach the teachings with an open heart, an open mind. And with an attitude of openness, we receive knowledge, and then we investigate for ourselves how things exist. Do they exist in the way they appear or not? And as I said at the outset of the segment, every single object needs to be investigated, outer and inner, whether it's something we see or hear and so forth, or if it's something we're thinking about. All of these we need to investigate. How do they exist in reality? This is the route to attaining lasting happiness. And to the extent we come to see and understand how phenomena exist in reality, our conviction in the teachings of the Buddha will grow and transform us.
Tilda tu chiondi pena
Tuk.
tindi chedi randa dila
chewa.
tigyur go mare nganzu dewan deba tang donga munde ba chigyur yimba ti tolaya sangwu tangwa ina nganzu me khanda chingba ina ya nganzu sama chigyur ki dewan degu yaba donga degu meba busin sunjane rwa di tikta 가즈스 제바 제바이네야 빼는 부친주 집엔 요구슈 육대야디 온네 비길래 그 가르친 육이어레스 비길 지와서 쉬우진 뭐 정말로 요구슈 육대야디 가르치더레스 그 대위치더레스 라브라 디 온네를 왔어 디 임바이나 디 임바이나 안주 까고래야 나라 대우 용약이 체도 무시엠발이야 누구당대야지 무시엠발이 경제돼야지 미셴바게 페나 칼라로즈나야 디츠 초니 소스 사데야지 다디 디 장부레베슬라와이나 다디 장부 이마인디 무연데 술다야라와스 코라 대원디고가 대원디고요리 그 동안 되고만 니 동안 되고만 니칼라 대워고야다 니칼라 동안 고메바디 찍바 임바이나 다츠 콜 동안 떼야디 장부 총마송스 장부 차마송스라 딘지 토네 사운다운디 오네 산지기 최디 예 오네 장부 장장치 로 장부 장장기 람라야 아니 드로거나 아니 산지기 손자베 랍자디 라글렌 따르고야디 다 게세 게타마 차요르제스
I encourage you to think about the statement. All beings, every being with life, only wants to experience happiness, does not want to experience any pain, suffering, or difficulty. And this motivates every activity of body, speech, or mind. Think about this. Take an illustration. Perhaps on some of your tables, you have a little insect right now. Imagine one there, if not. Imagine an ant scurrying along, going somewhere with some great pace and seeking something out. Ask yourself, what is their motivation? They are striving for happiness. They are trying to do whatever is important to that insect in that moment. They are striving to achieve happiness. This is the case for every being. Then think about our interactions with others. Think about times when we have interacted with others in ways that perhaps afterwards we recognize are less than ideal. We spoke harshly. We maybe deceived them, tried to take something from them. This is not in accordance with reality, or to express it different. This is not the actual, the real, the true path that leads to happiness. And we can recognize this by the previous reflection that this person we are interacting with, they want happiness too, no different from me. They want happiness as much as I do. They want to be as free of problems and difficulties as much as I do. This is 100% true for whomever you interact with in any circumstance. On this level, there really is no difference between us. So therefore, if we harm them, or the situation's reversed and they harm us, this speech or behavior, or even if it's a thought, is not in accordance with reality, and that is not a path and not a mode not a way of acting or engaging that leads to happiness. Understanding this, training your mind so that it becomes habituated to relating to others in this way, will cause you to interact with others, and when you're on your own, to think in a way that is in accordance with reality. In other words, in accordance with the method for achieving happiness. This is certain. This is 100% correct. I can guarantee it.
There's the Tamu Machena, and in Nekabgi, Chisuzuki Deva Chip, the Shenlaya, Dungatea, Shenlaya, Chongte, Chevana, the Carriores, Susu, Pen Kevsan Ragadata, and Shenlai Chongte and Carriores, some Dindi Yungoras. But Inaya Digi Pena Shenlaya, Pena Katsu Sigi, Dukja Chevana, Tuzuki Susulaya, Nugures, Sonrada. The Diam Pena Sula Dukja Chevaina, Dukja Chesa di Socha di, and Susulaya, Magawaji Chagrugi Yashi Yadamaras, Pena Tundruji Bana, qualified Chambu Chevana, Sugawachi Yava, qualified Dukja Chevena, and Su Magawachi. They couldn't Rotanavas. These are Magawachi Pena Tundru Yonanda, Mayonanda, Susulaya, Magang Mambu Yavana. And Ranshingi Kibu Mevaji, not the Chagoras, Negab Kevsan Rama Monichi, Drona, Toxin Chede Goyadoj, Topasa de Goyado. Dena Chingatsu Duja Chima Samsung, Topasa de Goyado, Tindimambu Yungors, Ganga Jipe, and Topasamugung is Chavana, and so Kawa Dena and Kawa Drona, Yoshi, there than Droyaji, then the Yungros.
When we don't act in accordance with reality, in other words, with the correct or actual technique to achieve happiness, we would be, and to rephrase that, an illustration of when we are not acting in accordance with reality and with the actual technique that brings happiness is when we bring harm to others. We can think of perhaps where we have conflict with others. This may be expressed physically, may be expressed verbally. It may be something major, it may be something slight. But in situations like that, afterwards, perhaps now, reflect when you have done so. And why did you do so? You did so because you wanted happiness. And you believed this person or object or animal was impeding your attainment of happiness. And you believe that this was the successful, the skillful technique to achieve the happiness you desire, to overcome problems and difficulties you are encountering. So this we need to recognize for ourselves. Secondly, as mentioned earlier, the person that you're interacting with or animal also wants happiness. And your way of acting in that moment compounded their pain, their problems, their difficulties, their unhappiness in their life. And thirdly, reflect that as much harm as we bring to others, we will receive in return. If you know some Buddhism, you'll know that this is a fundamental pillar of Buddhism. But we can actually observe something similar to this in our own lives. If there's someone we do not get on with, our interactions with them will often be quite tainted. Our speech may be harsh, our facial expression may be unpleasant. And in return, this person will not like us. They will hear our name and apprehension will arise. They'll see us approaching or hear our voice. Apprehension will arise. Therefore, our interactions with them are likely to get off to a bad start. This we know is true, whether we look at interactions with people or even with animals too. And especially if you are in an environment where there are a number of people that you do not get on with, you will be unhappy in that environment. There it is so clear that it cannot be ignored. When others are in your company and you've developed a reputation, perhaps for speaking in a way that's a bit harsh or even being quite aggressive, others will be suspicious in your company. They'll be apprehensive and they'll be suspicious of your motives and of what may be about to follow. So what I've presented here reflect on now, come to see that it is true, that it is in accordance with reality and with lived experience, and that it is not a skillful technique that does lead to lasting happiness.
Direta nganzugi lelhawujigi hakowachikleya pena nganzu mimangchada sususu sasang yorwas sususu kyoga sususu kimi kyoga digi kimi delaya susu sada delaya wani sem dini da nganyamdu mizikingi re samni pigilaya chambu chebayna ani kimi digi tsu dinashingi da chambu chegirwasa 다 파지 냄자 차고로지 아니 잡로라야 단자 문제는 로데바나 소 이치 지금 알았어 하고서 아니 장부 맞지 봐나
되는 것은
아니 소 이치 지금 알았어 소 이치 맞지디 아니 는 요를 얘기라다 장부 매와 기부 매와 안 딘딜 얘기라다 찍찍려야 네 소소 이마이 버피로 코란이야 상도다는 장부 치는 줘봐나 디 저기 야지야다 소소려야 소소 기부 연구라서 근데 개긴진 봐야냐 게트로야 원네 샘띵이 아니 게트로야 장부 쳐봐나 게트 중은 가드이나 개긴들이야 아니 장부 쳐도 왔어 야구 쳐도 왔어 개긴 게트 고고 따마나 아니 니마 찍라 게르소 하고 그러다 겐딩한도 고고던 것도 삼비 성무질래와나 아니 란싱 요다도 맞기봐 차기로 왔어
Reflecting on what I've just mentioned, you can see the importance of taking care of your own mind and how you thereby interact with others. So if I take an illustration of a relationship that you perhaps are in now or been in previously, if one partner relates to the other with gentleness, care and acceptance, the other partner, we know how they will respond. Similarly, with kindness also from their own sides. But then on the other hand, if the one partner is not honest. So here again, this word honest and true, we should understand more as that their way if the one partner's way of interacting is not in accordance with the actual way to achieve happiness. In other words, they sometimes tell some lies. They take out their bad mood on the other regularly. So act in a way that is not at all gentle and loving and kind. We know that how the other partner will respond. They'll be quite fearful when with their partner. They'll be apprehensive when the partner is going to speak. And because their own mind is tight and apprehensive, the way they're likely to respond may well be similar. But certainly there'll be a distance in their heart. What I've said here, unfortunately, I know you know it's true from your own lived experience. My experience, not with such relationships, but I know in the relationships between a teacher and a student. If a teacher relates to his students with care and gentleness, they'll have a close and harmonious relationship. The students will be much more receptive and open to the guidance from the teacher. But if the teacher deceives their students, that trust is likely to be broken. At the very least, unhappiness will arise in the mind of the student. So this also we know is true.
상기기 최 단지 공부시야 나시 안주 신급의 수스탄 최 간다진 바네 셴르 땐니 초비어지 셴르 땐니 초바티 추 내루트레스 이제 다 신디 강 댄사게 신들이야 신라야 삼당 투바이나 아니 라니 아니 가서다 아 낭기스는다 아니 그 디급dob기 아니 소소 야부차용 거래스
Shenki Sama
신라
Rangi
삼당바이나
Degoso, Denny?
신라 삼당바이나 신라 삼당 투바이나 소소 카리나 제투야 야부지용 거래스 라 빼는 신 파르보디 야부 촌는 디그리 삼성 그 로지여바나 아니 신기체도 깔레기압투 그래 신기체도 동아 탄들렌투 그래 아니 신기체도 아니 가서다 배준 가리는 제도에 차그래서 다 신성보다 란직보 삼당데 봐나 아니 다 깔레 마무 쇼지 야마투에 차도 그래서 소보고 마투야 수정소 마투야 아니 장부체 마투야라 소바 간지 신 삼당 마투 완자 아니 그냥 강가 dinil레인 거랬어요.
As I said earlier in the talk, the teachings of the Buddha are focused in the end, or finally, ultimately, on coming to understand reality. One of the key techniques to understand reality is to understand interdependence, that all phenomena have an interdependent relationship. They're not independent, but are deeply entwined. For example, if you have as your personality, a personality that easily thinks of the needs of others, and when interacting with others are very aware of your impact on them and cares about your impact on them, you will take the needs of others into account when trying to do things in your life, whether at work or at home. And taking the needs of others into account, seeing their wish for happiness as important as your own, what you're trying to do with them is much more likely to go well. They will feel a closeness to you, a sense of harmony with you, and want to work with you. If, on the other hand, achieving your goal is primary to you, achieving your goal is primary, you're not so aware of the needs of others. And in this way, you can railroad over them, steamroll them, easily take advantage of them, or at the very least be perceived as such. Here, the relationship will lack harmony. Minds will be disturbed. Your own is very self-absorbed, and that of the other will be in pain.
디저다 신라야 삼로당 투야기 주디 신라 제비 제와고다서라 신라 제비 제와생다 닌지세지 손라다 산지 닌지 여바이나 술라 닌지 여바이나 텔라 독자 책 말했어 라 술라 닌지 숙체와 여반 디 저기 디라야 디 체도 가리나 로봇 체도 그랬어 베나 아마디 랑기 풀라야 제와 슈지언자 부디체도 깔을 간다서 기하고 전화라 부디를 가르치고 전화 아니 부디체도 수수 쏠려 땅고 전화 아마디 땅 두고 열었어 간서 아마디 부디를 제발 헤매봐 여반사 들어왔어 된상간 좀 소차 간다질이야 수수응은데 텔레 제와 여반나 텔레 네스 지금 말했어 디 소차데 수수술이야 땡땡 가고 치는지 자고랬어
근데 디 소차 디 오늘 연결했나?
파 제와 여서 디 수수술 가고 치그랬어
Awesome. Buddha Shakyamuni taught that whoever genuinely has a compassionate heart, they will not harm others because they are concerned about the welfare, the happiness of others. So it would be completely contrary to their very nature to act in a way that brings harm to others. And a compassionate person will with ease and with sincerity do whatever they can for others. They may even seek out opportunities, certainly embrace them when they come their way, to be of service, to help others. Where we see this most clearly in our world is the attitude of parents to their dear children. Parents will with ease do what they can for their children. Even if sometimes there's a bit of frustration, they will still readily and happily be there for their children, help their children. And in society where someone does have a compassionate heart and does interact with others with kindness and with care, wanting to help them, this will be noticed and will be reciprocated. So in this way, from the compassionate person, they'll readily form close and harmonious relationships with all they encounter. And the people they meet will recognize this compassionate person and want to respond in a similar manner, interact with them also in a gentle and caring manner.
들다 간지 딘디게 또 쪼디 들어서 또 쪼디 아니 세원인지 첨보셋 로 세원인지 첨보셋 다디 간졸이야 다 랭키 다 랑싱기 아니 디요 말와스타라 이나야 아니 찌땅기 세와싱이지 간졸리다 요로스타 간졸 샘공라야 세위기 삼바치 로직 요로다 파마인바이나야 랑싱기 수수기 포줄이야 세와치 수푸주 베나다 첨부 차원디 아니 삼로 드라마다 삼로 독자 드라마다 코온디 참 까우칼이야 수수 푸주라야 세월란드야다 수수 파마라야 세월란드야 딘디 용거르디 아니 비 샘다 하장기 차바다 나게단 딘디 슈크치온디 아니 세와디 란드야 용거르마도 오늘 간주기 샘감 그 가서 다 링기라야 안 세비 로치겨레스 디 세비 로디 오늘지 콤팔 약부치 슈크침부치 땅고잖아 아니 산지 랍잘이야 또 되고야지 산지 강 송바티 무빈닐루라야 잘 무빈닐루 다 하고온디 샘디 몽비 원드 로요 마레스 몽보 마리비 원 무빈닐루 하고 바이나 샘디 샘기 마리바 도그레스 마리바 도온디 무이 네츠 카임바티 가르 개침부임바 가르 개총임바게 남주디 끼투요레스
The minds of love and compassion of great importance. What is considered actual love and actual compassion in Buddhism, these goals or objectives that we will be encouraged to develop, these we don't yet have, but what we do have is the seeds of love and compassion. Where we see it so clearly is in the way parents relate to their children, in particular when the children are young. When they get older and their behavior is on another level, then some other feelings may arise for the parents. But still there's that very clear undercurrent of love for their children. Where we can observe this from the outside is with parents and the young children, how they look at each other, how they relate to each other. These seeds for love and compassion abide within all of us. The reason that they do not guide us at all times and in our interactions with whomever we are with is because of contrary minds, opposite minds that suppress them, that overwhelm them. Minds such as attachment and pride, and in particular, ignorance. So this, we can perhaps call it innate or natural love and compassion that we all have. We can recognize this in ourselves, and recognizing that these being consciousnesses can be developed through becoming more and more familiar with them. And the teachings of the Buddha set out a clear and precise sequential way to train these minds within us so that they become dominant and guide us in all our interactions. So these teachings are true. They are in accordance with reality in that these teachings lead to one being able to train your own mind so that love and compassion become dominant within you, and in every interaction with others. Further, to be able to develop love and compassion well, the confusion of not knowing, ignorance, this has to be abandoned. And the technique for overcoming this lack of knowledge, as well as ignorance itself, is through coming to develop an ever deeper understanding of the teachings of the Buddha, and not just merely intellectually, but cultivating them within your mind. And to the extent that one counteracts one's ignorance, that aids the development of love and compassion. These two have an interaction, an interdependence. Love and compassion on the one hand, and the opposite to ignorance, wisdom on the other.
랭안주 셈나야 랑안주 셈나야 소소도 개체무시오 임바치 미션리 소소 개체와 임바치 소라지 열어왔어 라 미션리 소소 개체와 임바치 드림페나 잘라지 임바나 가리나 소소 개체무 쓰기로 왔어 디 약보치 상당와나 개체 총세야지 아주 미치담 미치담 미치니 수개체야레스라와나 지단 파 미치다 미치니 수개체야레스나 아 미치도 개체야레스라고 왔어 되고라 미원의 상당이나 아 미치디 개체야레스라고 왔어 대인자 당한주 디 디벨샤니 랑다 신스라운디 장매번 타매벌이야 거기 열었어 랑슬라운디 미치가 거기라서 다더니 가르치체도 슬라바나 오늘 안서 샘나는 완전 소화지 요구해로지 아 이네 균딩 디오 말다 신 랑다 신슬라운디 랑 개체 임바 랑 개체도 가리네 최고 신을 땅 거야로지 삼로저 디 아니 마시비 왕기 로 오늘게 미 이게 삼로 땅인 짐바나 남주영인 짐바나 삼당당 디 노르교 임바지 설거사레스라
Here again, look at your own mind, how you interrelate or interact with someone that you hold in esteem, someone that you see as important. This may often be people that help us, especially in a time of need or desperation. So we see that we do relate to different people in different ways. But then we need to ask ourselves a question. If we are asked, is one person and the fulfillment of their needs, or a group of 10 people and the fulfillment of their needs, which of the two is more important? Of course, we will say the larger group has to take a dominance over the single person, or to express it differently, have to be seen, related to as of more importance than just one person, because they are so much more. And this is the start of the reflection on relating to the importance that we hold ourselves as opposed to all others. We recognize that others are innumerable in number across all types of beings. Others are innumerable, but me, myself, I'm only one. And therefore, we should recognize that fulfilling solely our own needs, this is an error. And this way of thinking, this self-obsession, placing ourselves first, which is often accompanied by turning away from others, putting them a distant second, achieving our wishes, even if we know it's at the expense of others. This way of thinking that is so ingrained in all of us, this is a faulty way of thinking. This is a way of thinking that is not true, that is not in accordance with reality, because it is not a way of thinking that leads to lasting happiness. And here, we need to, one, recognize that we do think in this way, and secondly, recognize that it's not a beneficial way to think. It's a way that actually inhibits us and should therefore be abandoned.
다 딘질라 소비다 samlodi tango yoresra 간사나 랑당 신이 신케체와 임바 아니 랑당 신이가로 대원되고 여봤다 동안문대바 찍규리 임바 아니 랑기 신라 동아테바이나 장부 마임바 지금에바 딘지 samlo직 땅바이나 딘지 samlo직 땅토바이나 산지기 최 냠len 치야디 냠len 칭이진 바이나야 냠len 치야디 레라고 빼차고 와서레스 베나 수좀 송에 바이나 이 샹기 소체나 중국말에서 날되고 삼마임바 셴 동안 되면 봤다 란데 찍바인자 이 샹기 소체나 아니 나 장부 말에 삼성 그 상로 잡아나 아니 소체바도 빵토고 와서 아니 셴야 기 베나 셴기다 균노를 논절로 서고 쳐봤다 꾸바이나 셴기다 노르 배샬로 서고 꾸바이나 마지막 램바이나 셴라 뉴그레스 셴라 동아테그레스 땡아 잠부 마레 삼성 상로 잡아나 아니 마지막 램바테 빵토그라스 아니 셴 고거 담바이나 셴라 깡아티그레 셴라 동아테나 잠부 마레 가랑레 동아요나 가구문도 셴라 가구 마레 니 셴라 동아테나 롱 마레 삼성 디그마 가 잠부 차고 마레 삼성 딘디 상로 잡아나 야치 야담바잖아 아니 술좀 송야디 레라고 배차그레스 다 디메바이나 소소 디그는 디그리 삼성 소소 네급 캡산지라는 디그리 삼성 그 삼로지 여바나 가드이나 캐라메제 나올라야 아니 장부 생인다 뎀바 생인다 간지 아니 잠제 생인디 아니 로티 자원이 튼투고 말해 딤마투 이제라 아니 다 간지 미 장부 마힘베기 미치 다 차로도 와서 만주 소소 아니 미 독자지다 소소소 미 장부 매바지 자원이 소액 되버요 말아왔어 이내 란싱기 차로야지
근데 이 다음에 대랑 신기 참 된다 대행거나
소수 찍고 소수 캡산 찍고 싸움 대바나 아니 독자 천전 사람 제쇼로 그래 제바이나 소디 또 소수 독자 차로 그래
this reflection on the importance of all others as opposed to just oneself is of great importance to come to recognize that the way we interact with others, I need to take greater care. So several segments ago, I mentioned how all sentient beings, myself, all of us here, everyone, only wants happiness and wants to be free from suffering. Reflecting on that and coming to understand that others are important. I cannot place, it's not reasonable to have my needs fulfilled first and foremost and disregard the needs of others. Moreover, the understanding that others have equal right to happiness and freedom from suffering as I do. When we really give rise to this understanding, we'll recognize that if I interact with others in a way that is harmful, whether my way of speaking is based in anger and I'm expressing words that bring about conflict, or certainly if my physical behavior is aggressive and I express conflict physically, this is not in accordance with reality. It is not true. This is not the path to happiness for myself or for others. So these reflections on how our very basis, our very fundamental wishes for happiness and suffering, that this is shared by all others, and that when I act against the needs of others to fulfill my own, that this serves no one's needs. I only harm myself and others. To the extent we come to understand this, we have the ideal foundation to develop the principal foundational teaching in Buddhism of ethical restraint. Because ethics is the determination to restrain one's mind from bringing harm to others through our physical behavior, our way of speaking, or even our way of thinking. So when we recognize or we develop a sense of value for others, whomever they may be, through understanding they don't want to suffer. They are no different from me. They just want happiness, just like me. It becomes very easy to, with sincerity, determine I will no longer act in a way that brings harm to others. I will not be aggressive towards others in my way of speaking or my way of acting. I will not engage in conflict with others, even if they are unhappy towards me or unhappy towards me. I will not take advantage of others, even when I know I can get away from it. I will not use my power and authority to take advantage of others, to deceive them. I will not do that because I do not want to be treated in this way. And of course, nor do they. Rather than being a hypocrite, here through reflecting this way, we commit to restrain our mind and thereby our physical and verbal behavior. And there's a companion commitment that comes. On the one hand, there's a commitment, I will not bring harm. Its companion commitment is, I will interact with others in a way that's open and honest and straightforward. And I'll interact with others with a genuine care and tenderness for them, recognizing on a fundamental level, we are no different. You want happiness, so do I. You don't want suffering, nor do I. Developing this way of thinking overcomes our current self-interest, self-obsession of wanting our own happiness and overcoming problems, our own problems, even at the expense of others. So these are a crucial series of meditations to engage in, to transform one's mind.
Ane susu kewa jima pena ta jik nyewa kiyar sayadra da ane susu la dunga yungar say tindi samlo tani sutrum songe rik chik yungo res chidan yakbo res, digo res imba ina ya di ane tuksa di mi chikla susu chikbo la tukde yurba di lab chunga shen la samlo tamba ina lab chewa kanji tindi ane sutrum songa ina di chik yungo res ane nipa tila ya sutrum songa ina Kari Islandi, Rangi Semdi, and Park Pebu in Goddess, Park Pebus and Hagora.
Rangi Semdi goes on?
Park Pebus and Hulu Roach. Hajang be Samlayan, Namda Major, T in Goddess. Kansana, Sultrim Soina, Sultrim Katsu Soma, T Tsugi, and Chakba Shuk Chambotan, Kondrola Soba, $1 sobi sem di shukchong drogres ro di shukchong drobana sem de ranshingi ro kerang sem nalaya ninji kazus yobayna ya kerang sem tu mares kerang sem nalaya ngone bigi namjugi ro legba da nyebi tachi legni jetu yagi namju kazus shukchembo yobana kerang sem tu mares kerang sem leon docha hajang shukchembo leban kerang sem tu drogres control level in the same two degrees. Keep the others.
When one develops ethical restraint, when one becomes ever more ethical itself, and that this training of your mind is based on a deep and sincere understanding that there is no difference between myself and others. We all want to abide free of problems and difficulties, in a state of peace, mental state of peace. We all want that. To the extent that this is our foundation to develop ethics, our mind of ethics will become vast and the impact will be incredible. Because the initial training for ethics is, I don't want to suffer. If I'm unethical, I will create non-virtuous karma, and I will certainly fall into the lower realms in my next life, perhaps be born as an animal or even in hell. And there I will suffer intensely. So this is the general way that one will start one's training on ethics. But I encourage you here to add to that general training this understanding that others and I are no different. Therefore, I should relate to others in the same way I want to be related. To the extent that you become successful in this, what I can guarantee you how you'll experience this is your mind will become more relaxed, open, and spacious. You will experience a deeper sense of inner peace, an open spaciousness. And why is that? Why is being an ethical person, which means that you're restraining your mind from wanting to think or act in a way that brings harm? So why does restraining one's mind in this way lead to the mind becoming open and spacious? This is because there are two effects. The one is that by its very nature, ethics serves to restrain, ethical restraint serves to restrain the mind from coming under the influence or the dominance of other minds such as attachment, desire, self-interest, jealousy, competitiveness, and so forth. So to the extent we develop ethics, firstly, these other contrary ways of thinking, these afflicted ways of thinking, they will weaken because the ethical mind, ethical restraint, restrains the mind from coming under their influence. Secondly, the second benefit is, as I've encouraged you, you train in ethics by also reflecting on how we are all the same. There is no fundamental difference between us. This then serves to weaken our feeling of other and distance towards others. But rather, on the one hand, our mind is now more open and relaxed. We can therefore be more relaxed when interacting with others. Our mind will naturally be at ease. And when we're interacting with others, our mind being more spacious, naturally love and compassion will arise. And we'll interact with people, recognizing them as being no different from me. On a fundamental level, beyond the superficial, there is no difference. We all just want happiness. From this very interaction, we all just want happiness. And this leads to growing love and compassion for others and a sense of closeness with whomever you interact. These are the two results that come from ethics. On the one hand, your mind becomes more relaxed and spacious because contrary minds, like afflicted minds like attachment and jealousy, they don't dominate so much. And now, secondly, with this more open and relaxed mind, this feeling of closeness towards others starts to dominate. And love and compassion then within us can shine through. So this is a truly skillful way to develop ethics.
Tirda kanji nganzu semgamge kasa chakdangi lodi ani ma shukchong yobayana semdi lele chaya sem tembu deya sem tembu debayana karela samlo tangwayana tele samlo tangni gyurmu detures tinza tengin zingi semdi kiyala lelawo yores Tsultrim yona tengin zingi druya lelawo tengin zinda tsultrim yobayana ani sherab pigi ngubi nelukpe che tungingi ani sherab di ani pena karsada ani sherab yakshu diro tatsik mambu pechu chena ngochugda sherab yakshu di kiegores
This foundation of ethics is of great importance for the reasons just mentioned. Because with a mind that is ethical, firstly, the afflictions, they subside, they weaken, they arise less frequently and are less dominant, and thereby don't remain so long. Therefore, the mind is more at peace and at ease. So with this quality, the mind being more at peace and at ease, other virtuous minds that you want to develop, one can do so with relative ease. In particular, single-pointed concentration. This requires the foundation of ethical restraint. It's from this foundation of ethics that qualities like single-pointed concentration can be developed. Why? Because an ethical mind is a mind that's at ease. It's not stirred up by afflictions like attachment and desire, but is at ease. And when concentration, single-pointed concentration is developed, then the wisdom that understands reality, that wisdom conjoined with single-pointed concentration is the supreme, the very best of wisdoms. It's the very best mind to understand reality. The wisdom that is supported by single-pointed concentration, which one could develop with relative ease because the foundation had been established, ethical restraint.
Kadirda da şeref yakbu şikibana neluk pe çö namge neluk topi şeref di ani sebu dang ani dinji tembu yakbu jilebana ani mariba seti ra neluk katsus ge sebu sound down to one ti tsögi ani nelula shinjulo shu dengi loy pachada chebadi ani segores dogores 디 마리바 도바나 마리발 때문에 마리발 때문에 아니 차발레고리 차발 때문에 컨트롤레고리 되는 차도레고리 디 사말로 도르야지 딘자 레다 니몰 때문에 동하르기 rem바 용자 사말로 파야디 아니 셔럴 때는 용거레스 디 디송거다 간지 남바산지 위치 도도로디 아니 딘디 송여레스
To the extent that one develops the wisdom, understanding reality, how everything actually exists in reality, and especially not just a mere understanding, but a understanding of reality that you're deeply habituated with, so stable within you, then your ignorance, with ignorance being contrary to wisdom, will proportionately weaken. To the extent wisdom grows, ignorance will weaken. And to the extent one's wisdom becomes stable within one, wisdom is reliably weakened. In other words, it's not going to rear its head that often. And eventually it will be completely eradicated when the wisdom is deeply stable within one. But in this process of developing the wisdom that understands reality, to the extent wisdom is developed within you, the contrary mind of ignorance will weaken. As the wisdom grows, the contrary ignorance will proportionately weaken. And what then also goes along with the weakening of ignorance is the weakening of the results that follow from ignorance. Afflicted minds, afflictions like attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, and so forth. To the extent we develop wisdom, contrary ignorance weakens. And to the extent that this ignorance is now weakening, all its results of these afflictions, they weaken. And as our wisdom is growing and our ignorance and the resulting afflictions, these delusions like attachment and desire and jealousy and pride, to the extent they weaken, we experience far fewer problems, suffering, and difficulties because the causes of our problems, suffering, and difficulties are being eradicated. So therefore, wisdom is supremely important. And the Buddha taught everything he did so to enable his students then and the generations to come to understand reality. And therefore, the development of wisdom is greatly emphasized.
on the Jordan and Chechoris.
So we have quite some minutes left. So if you have some questions, then please do ask.
I have a question.
A question.
I have a question. This is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Good.
Can you hear me? This is Chris. I don't think I'm.
I'll be brave and ask a question. So as an individual who is working towards developing wisdom and the ignorance is slowly waning and therefore the afflictions as well, when you have a partner who the ignorance outweighs the wisdom, and I say that respectfully, and the afflictions are so much more greater. How do you then deal with that? I understand through wisdom and compassion, and when you extend the invitation to gain wisdom, that is not accepted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Dini also Sherapel Toto, Dini also the doctor Marikba Shukchuru de Dan Namdu, also Yomong Shempayang Shukchuru Tokiade. Being a Hakajo. Yini Di Jena or JP Kapla, Zanta, Kong a Drumpolapna, Kong Gimari Pangshun, Repese Mongpa, de Shukchempo de. Yomong Shukchempo Yare. Then I can't di Candace Selgerepe. Cadenza Deni Yesama di Dria de Giabla, Ne Kongla, Drampo da Namdu, Keshe Yamada, Sosaran Drampo Turn, Deni Kongnala Mersu Nergiade. Pelche di Dundakte, Ne Kong da Namdu, Drampo Turndu, Kongnala Mersu Nergiade. Ne Samla di Dria Giabla. 양캐터지?
예, 그렇습니다.
오케이. 데니 낭초 냐면 제도 데니 이닝에 잔다 공
대축치견의 캠.
예. 공 낭초 계는 저기 말에 예 추워 공 녀몽 숙제 보여래. 데니 공 녀몽 괜찮이 나라 녀기가 됐어. 이닝아 세라반인지 라소파케 탑시 제기래. 얘네 데니 공 나라 무슨 녀기가 됐어. 디 Dene I can't reject it. Because in Namlin J, same period, Tapsi check it. Yine Kongla Ngala, Kongi Ngala Negere. Then in some of the Gapla, Ne Kongla Jumpo Turner, Ben Jumpo Genicus Sena, Dene Kongi Ngala Nursu Negere. Did it. Not so control Duxade, how could get a Yine Kongi Ngala, control Kencheni, Mersu Negere. Then Kong Kiboyon get it. 네 삼라 디 비어기 kabulade. Deni kare checkere. Because deni konda kongyang and ninchi dan sera pejudan korenge di haga somni kandas.
Difficult question. And so just joke. Very good question. Right. nganzu nganzu samgorazra 지 nganzu soba gomya jorada soba gomya thi 하장 그 펜도 침부지 송요레스다 라 이내 nganzu sobe 페디 통금해 봐인자 내급지기 아니 베나직 아니 깨자 아니 도매셔야다 직 내급 기로 소소 소금 제거야 갑질레기로 디 아니 소소라야 둥할 슈지마 소르고라스 디 강한 제거서레스 아
디 강요 되게래. 디
야 소복 고미야 갑질레기로 소복 곰고야 갑질레기로 근데 오늘 진짜 소복 곰고야 갑들이야 소복 곰 투바이나 하장 그 편도 침부 소복 고미야 갑래 온디 디 소복 곰고야 갑이 뭐 하마고지 디 소소라 강가 슈지레 삼 초아지 끼에 되바이나 다 강한 제거서레스
The practice of patience is difficult to achieve, but of great importance. The practice of patience is a mind that stays undisturbed in the face of adversity. So the mind is relaxed in the face of adversity. But this is difficult to see the benefits of, and it's difficult to train in, but is of great importance at times like this.
양안주 소비 냠네디 개침부 쓰고라스다 아 소비 냠네 개침부 쓰대 소비 냠네디 가두 소바 공고 그래스 걔는 장부슈 제대로 gangan 걔는 소바 공고에 그나 여마로 왔어 아 걔는 대식 비기 깨자 캔자 쉐딩 남규 캔자 땡땡 지기 아니 강한 트레이딩 질레반다 걔는 오늘 소바 공이야 뒤서 데리 송로다 드디 걔는 소바 공도 봐나 소복음 또는 땡땡 드링금 산이금도 수검다 아니 계란 그 샘디 착부 설 야자야담 차그레스 디 계란 소복음에 까불려 온디 티가나 그런 거 독자 지금 그런 거 야부 지금 지 삼니 두스야 빠르대와나 매담아서 빠르대와나 추도 망 사오차그라 하서라 디덴데 나 레로 마레스 칼리어스 야치담 칼리어스 하고도 왔으라 이나야 로단 데레스다 디 세야기 탑시로디 소보고미야 라제 마도 슈슈요 마라스
Hearing from me that patience is of great importance, the question which is sure to arise, so how do I develop patience? How do I develop a mind that is undisturbed in the face of adversity? So when this is difficult to do, and I don't want to shy away from that. On one hand, when someone is trained in patience, opportunities to practice it are welcomed. When someone speaks in an aggressive manner, when someone shows an aggressive facial expression, a person whose mind is trained in patience embraces that opportunity because now they get to see the results of their training. But this is a difficult stage to reach. So if one responds in the usual way of either responding to fire with fire, we know this doesn't work so well. But also if one responds in a different way by becoming small and coward, this doesn't lead to a peaceful mind either. So the first start is when one's mind is relaxed. You're coming here, you're hearing the teachings, perhaps you have time later to reflect on the many things I mentioned. When the mind is like that, and stably so, then one has the basis for patience, to practice patience, because one's mind will stay undisturbed, because it's open and relaxed.
들다 난주 미세 나와야 소바싱인데 야다가 개침부 슈치 펜도 슈유게 찍라 난주 미세디 다 당한도 있는다 미세 거랑 지구진 로로 왔으라 아 차와치 아니 지구진 로로 왔 다 이나야 고만한테 진짜 지구 마음부고 아니미 마음부기는 로고 그래 간지 딘 좋은디 딜로그래 빼나 다 망치야디 소소 사상 여러 왔어 사상 지라운디 미니냠도 되고 그러다 쇼기는 건다 봐 대 미니들이야 아니 샘카 만더니 여러 왔어 소르와 만더니 여러 왔어 아니 지 계제나 상로탄단 드래그 마르왔어 다 디니 만더지 니 투온디 딱다치 데그 마르왔어 다 딜이야 냠도 끼투에 소바드메나 토드로야겠다 자자자다만 냥갈 레고레스 소바 여바이나 아니 샘카 만드와 임바 소바 만드와 여바 아니 남주 만드와 임바 디코 그 가서다 다 춘예세라 다 춘예로 왔어 미니 레바이나 드라마 디 만드와 임바 디 소스 샘라 샤는디 그 용초그래 용 외바치 그 딘디 상담이 아니 드라바이나 조바 검투야지 아니 소바 검투바이나 맨날 사상진 바이나야 사상 매체 거란이야 냠도 끼어야지
디 보면서
사상 소바요나 찍질이야 소바 검투바이나 아니 매체 거란 냠 대토야지
그것은
다 소바면나 테스트 찍면도 마차온디 아니 통고문도 저런 중앙한 드로잉 슬라지 알람사 드로샤이저라스 이제 난 뒤다도 따지 소비 냠는 그래 소바 생긴 거니 고야지 그럼 미지 미세나는 소바면나 강가만부 체비여 봤지 딘지지 상무다 소비 로델이야 오니 지 소스 싸침부 전투바나 아니 소바 곰 고비 갑둘이야 텐데 소바디 냠는 체 펜토용 거서레스 니 서로가 니 딘디다 상거다
in our life, patience really is something that is crucial to develop. It is so beneficial. So if I take my own case, my own life as an illustration, so my lived experience is quite different from yours. I spent many years living in a monastery, engaged in extensive studies, living with a larger group of people, also had a lot work and responsibilities to do. So I had quite a different living condition. In your cases, when you're living with one person, how their state of mind is, or your state of mind, has a very direct impact on just that one other person's directed towards them. And with two people, they are going to have two different ways of thinking, two different ways of experiencing or relating to the world, two different ways of experiencing the same event. So they will have these differences. This is the case. And if genuine patience is lacking, conflict will follow. It is inevitable. So therefore, there is a great need for patience. To the extent that one has developed patience, one can deal with difficult people easily, as if they were not difficult. If you're with someone who's difficult or not, it's the same. Because the mind is, again to give the definition, undisturbed in the face of adversity. If patience is lacking, then when these two different people, these two different minds with their own way of thinking, clash again and again, separation is quite likely. Patience is essential. When one has time alone, like perhaps you do either this morning or today, and at other times, those are precious moments to try to use to cultivate a mind that does stay undisturbed in the face of reality. And by doing this, it will become easier. It will become easier to deal with adversity with a mind that's undisturbed.
Thank you.
Reciting the final limb prayer, page 339, the gold book. For my two types of merits, fast and space that I have amassed from working with effort at a great practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom, eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best to complete greater parts of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings. With the points of the path as I have discerned them, may I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this greater path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons, may all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity, create the conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths, never be parted in any of their lives in the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones. May oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.